So I'd like everyone to know that this session is being recorded for learning purposes. We're going to share it with our global learning community. So that's one of the things we do. We create content together, and we invite everyone to participate. And if you're willing to do so, this is fantastic. Again, welcome to this session on project planning and controlling with Microsoft Project. My name is Jacques Alexis. I'm a full-time faculty in the leadership and project management domain in CPS, and I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts. So I have Professor Rim Gohar from Portland, Maine, who's also here. So would you like to introduce yourself, Professor Gohar?
Sure. So my name is Rim Gohar, and I am teaching the foundation in Maine. And most of them there need this session for Microsoft Project. And I am so glad, and all my students are glad that Jacques is offering this work. Thank you, Jacques.
Okay. So this program was initiated actually by NUPM Boston, and every quarter we offer a workshop on Microsoft Project and primary risk analysis. So this is something we're actually very happy to do. So the purpose of the workshop is to introduce you to Microsoft Project and to talk a bit about the idea of technology integration in management. So project managers nowadays, are required to have soft skills like leadership and communications. They're required to have more business acumen, but also they're required to use, the latest technologies to help the organizations remain competitive or develop a competitive advantage. So this is what we're doing here. So we're going to talk about, we're going to start by talking about the user interface in Microsoft Project, and then we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about theories here. It's all about practice, and we're going to go straight to doing stuff in the software. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to find the practice files that I sent out to you, the instructions that we're going to follow, at least most of it, and I'd like to invite you to participate, ask a lot of questions and ask anything you want. We have data from a spreadsheet I've sent out as well. So we're going to use that. So what are you looking at right now is when you launch project for the first time, this is what you're going to see. You will be able to start a project plan from a blank project, completely empty, or you can use a template to customize and create whatever you create, saying from a template. In this workshop, we're going to use a blank project. And the reason for that is because I want to make sure we understand some of the most important features of the software, and the things we're going to do will be related more specifically to the lab assignments we have in foundations of project management. So that's what we're going to do going forward, right? So please, I'd like you to participate with me. So I'm going to ask you to open project now. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do it. If you are going to access project from a virtual machine, it's going to take a little time to access the machine. So please start, as we're receiving more people, start your Microsoft Project application. So let's do that so we can work together. Okay, so in the meantime, I'm going to, for quality purposes, I'm going to quickly turn off my camera. You can let your camera on if you want. There is no problem I want my microphone on. Okay, so when you're ready, please type in the chat ready, so we can start working and looking into the software. Okay, perfect. We have 9 people ready here. That's awesome. Can we have more people ready so we can start? That's very good. Okay. Perfect. This is fantastic. Great.
Hi, Professor. I have a quick question. I joined a little bit late because I was having issues with my Zoom, so apologies there. But we're just opening up Microsoft project right now and just renaming it. Is that what we're doing, or?
We just actually waiting for everyone to access project. So
okay, got it.
Yes.
Got it. I have it open. Great. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. So when you open project for the first time, this is what you see. You see options to start a project from a blank project. That's what we call a blank template. And you can also use templates of or other projects, project you developed before to actually create in a project. That's what you're looking at here. Now, in this workshop, what we're going to do, we're going to start with a blank project. So if you don't have a project file open yet, so I'd like to invite you to do that. Here we go. So when you open project, a blank project file, for the first time, this is what you see. Now, what you need to know is that Microsoft Project is divided into workspaces. And these workspaces, they call them views. So what you see on your screen depends on the view you have selected in the project. Now, the default view in the software is the Gantt view, right? The Gantt view has an entry table. This is where you actually enter information, data about your project. As you can see here on the left side of my screen, it's just like a spreadsheet. You can, where you enter project activities, duration, etc. So if you look at the right side of the screen, this is actually where you're going to see the Gantt bars, and you have a calendar here that is linked to the timeline of the project you create. Actually, you can change this. If you look right now, you can see month, February, March, etc. But you can actually change that, customize it to show week instead of month. You can actually do that. Now, from the top, I have, the quick access bar. The quick access view is something you can customize. Actually, you can decide what goes in there. And then I have the tabs, and all of this is what they call the ribbon. Now, Microsoft, the first versions of project was actually launched in 1984. It was on DOS operating system. It was very difficult to use. I've tried it actually in the late 1980s, like 1989. I was playing with computer at the time, and it was very difficult to use. And fortunately, Microsoft launched the point and click version, the Windows version as you know it, in 1990. So 1990 onward, like 1990, 1995, 1998, early 2000, 2002. So you have Windows operating environment with Microsoft Project. So that's when Microsoft Project became really very, very popular. So there were some significant updates in 2003 and 2007, particularly in terms of reporting. A lot of features were added to the software. And what are you looking at here? It's called the ribbon view we're using right now, was introduced in Microsoft Project specifically in 2010. And I have to be honest, from 2010 to now, 2021, last versions, and to the cloud in 2016, the ribbon, I mean, there are some improvements in terms of reporting. The user interface changed just a tiny little bit, not very much. So, but in terms of features and functions, the software, became really very powerful in terms of a lot of what you can do with it. So it's fantastic. So here you have tab. In the tab, you have the file, file, task, resource, report, project. These are the tabs that we're going to use. And then underneath here, you have some comments that are already here, which you can change if you want to customize it. Okay, so and here you have a timeline. So when you start entering information about a project, you're going to have a timeline for your project from start to finish. Now, what do you use the software for? First, you use the software to manage the schedule of your project. That's time management, and also resource management, because you don't have a schedule until you know who's going to do what in a project. In order for you to carry out your project activities, you need resources. So in the software, even if you were not tracking cost, if you want to track time, so you need two things. You need project activities, you need first, obviously, deliverables, project activities, and you need a start date for your project, when your project will start, you know that. You need activity durations, how long things will take, and obviously, relationship among those project activities, you need to know that. And once you enter this information and durations for your project activities, Microsoft Project gives you an estimate of when your project will end. This is called forward planning. Forward planning means I have a start date and I feed the software with some information, and it's gives me an idea of when my project can end. So the durations you enter in Microsoft Project, as you can see here, I only have one duration column. It's called a most likely duration. So for example, when you say planning is going to take 10 days, you believe, for whatever the reason or informations you have, that planning is going to take 10 days, most likely duration. Later, when you take a course in risk management, you're going to learn how to model uncertainty in your project plan using minimum, most likely, and maximum duration. So we're not going to cover that in this workshop, but we're going to work with most likely duration. for the data we have in the Microsoft Excel file. So I was talking a little bit to give you time to launch Microsoft project. Hopefully everyone is ready to start using this. So where do we start? I think the way to start is from what we wanted to do. Let's explore a little bit the backstage view in Microsoft Project. So if you take a look at the backstage view in Microsoft Project, as you can see, it's in the File tab here, the File tab. You see project informations, right? You see the file informations, whatever the project is, save as. But if you go all the way down, you see options. In options, there are a lot of things you can do. And in project informations, this is where you enter informations about your project. For example, if you bought the software overseas, and you have a version that is not a US or North American version, and you wanted to change currency, display, etc., this is where you do all this. We can go back to it, but this is where you can do a lot of customizations. For example, the symbol, the unit currency you use, you can change all this in options. You can take a look at your schedule to see what you want to change. A lot of things you can customize here, right? So we're going to go back to this as we move through the workshop. So let's click back again and click on information. I think this is important to provide your stakeholders, people who will access your file, about what the project is about. This is where you enter the project title, the name of the project, what is the project about, who's the project manager, the name of the company. So you can actually fill this out. Now, if you want to tell people what is this project about, what are the objectives of the project, that would be where you enter this information. Now, what you need to remember is project objectives must be specific and measurable. Some people say they must be smart. And I'm going to give you an examples here, so we all know what I'm talking about. When we talk about smart objectives, you enter this information here. I actually have an examples here for you, for this project we're working on. Your project objective, the way you present it, it could be a paragraph, it could be half a page, 1 page, it could be 2 pages or 3 pages. It's entirely up to you how much information you'd like to provide your stakeholders. But what is important is that there are 4 key questions that you must answer in your project objectives. The questions are what is it you are going to deliver? That's the scope of the project. Why this project is being initiated. This is where you talk about the reason for which the project was undertaken and link the project with the strategic objectives of the firm. So you link project objectives with business objectives. What is the organization trying to do with this project, and how long it's going to take? That's time bound, and how much money it's going to cost, right? So as you can see here, in a very short paragraph, I answer 4 questions. What? Concentrated solar power plant with a minimum capacity of 390 megawatts. And how long this is going to take? 3 years. The cost of it, how much money it's going to cost. We have a limit. We don't want to go over that according to the stakeholders. And what will it do? What's the purpose of that? It's going to electrify about 144,000 homes. So that's, you see here, I have what we call the triple constraint. You know, Fortunately, more and more organizations are taking more constraints or the things into considerations when they talk about project objective. Some organizations right now are looking into environmental impact, social impact of their project. But when it's come to the project management team, they follow exactly what the organizations is actually doing. If they ask them to deliver this project on time, they go according to the design specifications and the stakeholders' requirements. So if they work for an organization that does not take environmental concern into consideration, it's going to be very difficult for the project management team to do so. So as you can see, the objectives of the organizations and the practices, the processes, all depend on the strategic objectives of the firm. So that's what we hear. I'm going to actually copy this and paste it into my comments to tell people about what this project's about. So when someone open my project file, and they can know, so for project manager, enter your name, your organizations, you can enter Northeastern University. That's going to be fine, right? So what I'm going to do, we're going to start with step one. We're going to follow it, as much as possible. I'm going to save this, and always in school, in your company, put the name of the project in the file name. For example, if this is the F4045 project, you say, well, this is the F4045 project, right? So for this one, I'm going to call it my name, last name, Alexis, my initial here, J. And what is this project about? It's a CSP plant. And I'm going to call it file number 3. And I'm going to save it on my desktop, right? I save it here on my desktop, /3. So this is my file. So when you submit your file, as we all here in learning together, I'm thinking of you, your lab assignment in mind when I talk about this. So that's what I make sure I address your lab here. So I do have a file. So remember, when I'm creating a plan, I need a start. I need to give the software a start date for my project. So I have a file now. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to tell the software when my project will start, right? So to enter start date for your project, click on project information. This is actually the only place you can do it properly, enter a proper start date here. If you do it any other way, if you start typing activities and you don't change the date in the project information, is actually not going to be correct. So for date, let's type July 1st, 2022. That's 07/01/2022. Right? So let's do that and click OK. All right. Now, as you can see, my timeline changed. The timeline before was today's date. Now it went back to July last year. Now, when you will be working in real life project example, now this project we're creating is a power plant project. A power plant project will follow what we call a predictive development approach. It's not going to be agile. It's not going to be adaptive. It is, in a power plant project, you must be able to anticipate, plan as much as possible in advance. So in power plant development project, people are not going to use agile. Not now, not in the next 100 years. And the reason for that is because stakeholders don't want you to do that. They want to know, for example, what are the future cash flows in this project? What are the potential future cash flows? They want to know in advance what are the risks associated with the development, constructions, and operations of the plant. They don't subscribe to the idea of adaptive planning. They do not want that. So that's one thing to keep in mind, right? So now I have a start date for my project. I can actually, with a start date, start thinking about is the calendar that I'm going to use for my project, is it going to be the same for the entire organization? Now, what you need to know, if the calendar that you're using for a project, because in many organizations, they can have a project, even if the organization is working 5 days a week, they can have a project where project team members only work 4 days in the project. So you can create a new calendar or a custom calendar for your project. Right now, the calendar that we use here, if you take a look at project information, and if you take a look at calendar here, it's a standard. And a standard calendar means that it's 5 days a week and 8 hours a day. But you can always change that, right? You can always change that. So if you click here, there are we have a 24 hours calendar, and not shift calendar, and a standard calendar, right? What else you have here? Once you start entering data for your project, you can come here and check your project statistics. As you can see here, I don't have much information apart from the start date of my project. I don't have baseline, I don't have actual costs, I don't have a variant, I don't have anything. So we can close this. Right. So to demonstrate what we can do when we are working with calendar and designing a project, because remember, resource management is extremely important when managing a project. Resource availability is a project killer. Now, if you plan, for example, a test to test an equipment or software within a range of dates or on a specific day in your project. So you want to make sure that the test engineer is going to be available. Now, if the test engineer is going to be on vacation and you schedule them to work on your project, then you're going to have a problem. So understanding people's availability is extremely important. Now, the way you manage things like that is in change working time. As you can see from the project tab in the properties group, I have change working time, right? So I do have something that I'd like us to do. You can, as you can see here, I can create exceptions for my calendar, but I can actually create different work weeks in my project, right? I can create a new calendar from the standard calendar, or I can even create one from scratch. So my advice from my experience working on these things, it's a good idea to start with the standard calendar and make changes. You go faster. Like that. For example, I can create an exceptions here. I can tell the software, for example, we don't work on Thanksgiving at Northeastern University because we say this is a Northeastern University project. So go here in exceptions, click, make sure you have this tab selected, exception, right? And then, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to type Thanksgiving here. I'm waiting for everyone to do it if you're working with them. Thanksgiving, all right? And Thanksgiving this year, I think if we go all the way to November, we're going to see Thanksgiving week is this week. the week of the 20th, right? So we want the entire Thanksgiving week to be off, right? So from the 20th to the 24th. Now, if you take a look at the calendar here, take a look at my screen, the gray areas, the gray part are non-working time. And if you see here, it's explained working time, non-working time. So after you do that, go to details. And if you go to range of recurrence here, I do have the start for November 20th. I could add at the end to November 24th, right? So I give it a range of recurrence and I click OK. And if you look here, the week of Thanksgiving turns gray. That's mean the software now recognizes it as a non-working time for the project. And if you click OK, again, now when you assign human resources to project activities, Microsoft Project knows that no one will be working on Thanksgiving week, and no one will be assigned to work. You don't have to do anything else. Now the software is smart enough to know that no one will be working. So you can actually enter informations, you train your software. It's actually, you can say that the software is learning what to do from informations you enter there. So if you go back to change working time, and if you, as you can see here, this is February, but if you click all the way here to go back to November, you can see that it is, you know, a week off, so no one will be working here. Now I'm going to stop for a minute and take any questions you have. So far, what we've done, we take a look at the backstage view. We feed it with informations about your project, and you can actually even add keywords to look for your file when you're looking for it, in case your file is, you know, files can move sometimes from one folder to another inadvertently. So if you're looking for your file, keywords you enter in informations here. So if you go back and take a look at here, you have keywords you can enter to look for your files. That will be very helpful if you lose your file. So the other thing we did, we enter start date for the project, because we're going to do what we call forward planning. From start date, we will start entering data in the software so we can create what we call a performance measurement baseline, right? The baseline, when we have a good plan, we're going to baseline it, and we're going to use it as standard for comparison later when our project is underway during execution, right? Now I'm going to stop here for a minute to take questions, and then we can move forward with our training. So questions. Let's see. Let's check the chat. Anything here in the chat? Some people waiting at the lobby. Is that true? Let's take a look. That probably was a long time ago. Okay, everyone is in now. That's good. Okay, thank you very much. Leela, what did you say? No.
Hi, sorry. Is it 2022 or 2023 for the November week example?
Oh, it's this year, 2023.
So 23, okay.
Yes.
I have a quick question about the, project software for changing the working time. Like, let's say, you're obviously working on a project that spans across different departments. And let's say, like, hypothetically, like my research team is away on a conference, so they're going to be unavailable for a week, but the design team is going to be available and working. Is there a way to adjust working time for different parties, or is it mainly big picture scheduling for working time?
Actually, you can do that. You can not only you can create a calendar for your projects, you can create calendar for your resources, you can even create calendar for your tasks. You can say this task will not have any work during this period of time. You can say these people specifically will not. You can create resource calendars. Yes, it's very flexible when it comes to changing working time and creating different calendars in software. Absolutely,
Great.
That's something you can
Thank
do.
you.
Yes. Resource calendar. Yes, very interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, play with change working time if you want. I just showed you that you can actually customize your own calendar. You can create task calendar, resource calendar. You can do a lot of things with that. Now, so what I'd like to do, I'd like to move to step 2, where we actually enter information and see how the user interface is changing as we use information. Now, when you work from a blank project, as you can see, it looks like a spreadsheet. You can type directly from this view, right? You see that if you, for example, if you take A, B, let's say, you enter task A, task B, you're going to have task name, and there are task IDs that are creating from 1 to whatever the number you have entered. So you can type here directly. So when you're working on your lab assignments, you don't have to work with Excel first. I needed a way to share this information with you without giving you everything in the project. So what we're going to do, we're going to copy and paste informations in the software, right? So, and remember the sequence in which we do a thing is actually important. We start with entering project informations and project start date. Now we're going to enter the task that we're going to work. Now, a task in Microsoft Project can mean a deliverable, or it can mean an activity. We're going to talk about the difference as we work through this workshop. So go back to the spreadsheet. And I believe you can still see my screen here. So this is the spreadsheet. I would like to draw your attentions to the structure of the spreadsheet, right? When I copy information from the spreadsheet to Microsoft Project, I'm going to lose this structure. Now, what is this structure? It's called a hierarchy. In this hierarchy, I have the project. That's the name of the project. It's not only the WBS. So I'm going to remove the word WBS here to make sure that you know that I have more information than the work breakdown structure. I do have work breakdown structure items, but I also have project activities. Now, let me give you an example. Project initiation is a project management deliverable, all right? It is a project management deliverable, and high-level planning is also a project management deliverable. So under project initiation, I do have project activities. Now, the difference between a deliverable and an activity here is the fact that a deliverable is something that I can measure, assess, and verify. An activity is an action that I perform. So here, project initiation, I can say has my project been initiated? I can take a look to see whether I create or created items or artifacts that are related to project initiation. For example, do I have a project charter? Do I have a stakeholder analysis? I can take a look at those things. And high-level planning is another project management deliverable. So as you can see here, I do have everything indented under the name of the project. And what I have here is the project being a level 1 or ID 1 in my spreadsheet. So I'm going to do the same thing in Microsoft Project. I'm going to replicate this hierarchy with deliverable here and sub-deliverable, right? I have pre-feasibility study as a deliverable, and I have sub-deliverable like assessment of different technical options, cost-benefit analysis. These are called sub-deliverables. Now, in your lab assignments, when they ask you for provide, let's say, 20 deliverables for this project, because they know if you can do it with like a prototype, you can do it for a large-scale project. So that's what we're going to show you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy all this information from 1 to actually 60, copy, and I'm going to paste this information into project, right? Here, paste this information, right? That's what I have. Now, as you can see, I lost the hierarchy, so I have to do it. I have to redo it, right? So I'm waiting for everyone to do this. As you can see, the thing that remains constant, the same here, is the fact that my project, the concentrating solar power plant project, is actually ID1, right? So I'm going to select everything underneath here, and I'm going to click on the task tab. This is the task tab, and I'm going to indent it. That is indent, that is output. Here I want to indent it. See that? Now I create the project is now a summary task. Whenever you indent subtasks under a task, you have a summary task. Now, if you click on this collapse button, as you can see, you can actually hide everything under the name of the project. You can click on it again to show things. So that's one of the features you have here. So that's the first thing I do. Now, pay attention to the durations of the projects here. It's 0 days, obviously, because I didn't enter any durations yet, but be patient. We're going to do that as we work on this. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select the project initiation activities from create project charter up until to hold project kickoff meeting. And I'm going to indent, remember the task tab and then indent. So I want to make sure everyone, now if you want me to wait a minute, I can certainly wait for you. But if you don't stop me, I'd assume that you're all set. But I want you to know that if you want me to stop, I am willing to do so, to make sure we can move forward together, right? So I'm not going to indent high-level planning under project initiations. I'm going to leave it here, assuming that it's part of project planning instead of project initiation, right? So you could break, high-level planning into scope planning, schedule planning, cost planning, etc. But we're not going to do this here. So what's next we're going to do? Remember, we are replicating what you have in Excel. So I'm going to select these and indent here. All right. I'm going to do the same thing here. Indent. And here. Indent. And for financing and contract, I take all these sub-deliverables and I indent. And detailed design, I do the same. Now, here's a tricky one. Site, all of these are under construction, including all of these too, under construction. However, on-site mobilizations here is under site operations. So I need to make sure that these activities will be under on-site mobilization. So I'm going to click on it 2 times, right? So I have a phase of the project, construction, and I have site preparations, a deliverable, sub-deliverable, and activities. So when you're creating a hierarchy, I want you to know that the activities are always going to be at the lowest level, and they can never be at the same level as a deliverable. They must be at the lowest level. So that's what you see right here. Now we can continue with this. All the monitoring and controlling activities, we're going to indent under the monitoring and controlling process group, and closing items are going to go here under closing. Now, what you need to know is that milestones have 0 durations, and they will not affect your project duration whether you indent them or not. So that if you want, you can leave it like that. That is if you want. So this is where we are right now. As you can see, we have everything that has 0 durations here. Project automatically mark them as milestones, even if they're not. Milestones here is this black diamond shape, Gantt information. So that on a Gantt view. So that's what you're going to see. And the start of the project, remember what we enter, these informations, and everything by default is going to be here. Yes, Mona, you can, please, questions, go ahead. I think you're on mute. I can't hear you. Mona, you have questions, I guess. I saw your hand. Okay, John, go ahead.
Hi, Professor. Can you go over again how to indent and create the hierarchy in project?
Oh, of course, yes, absolutely. So we started without a hierarchy at all, and when we copy and pasted from the spreadsheet. So what we did, the first thing we did, we indented everything under the name of the project. Here, concentrated, should be concentrated, solar power plant. So I selected everything here and indent. The indent feature is in the schedule group under the task tab. So task, schedule group here and indent, right? So that's the first thing. And then we mimic whatever we had in the spreadsheet. We take all the initiation activities, we indented under initiation, project initiation, and all the site identification sub-deliverables, we indented on the site identifications, etc. So we just select them and click indent. You can actually outdent if you want to. Now I outdented them and I can indent again, right? That's how we did it. And for everything else. Did that answer your questions, John?
Yeah, yes, thank you. I was just late to download the Excel file. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Yes. Other questions? I'm actually willing to stop here to take questions so we can move forward.
Professor, I had a doubt. Could you please
Yes.
go over this double indenting that you said, like double indent?
Oh, probably in constructions, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so what I can do here, I can actually outdent and do it again. All right. And this one. And this one. And okay. So here we want to make sure that everything is under the project, right? So what I said is site preparation is under the construction phase. So I indent this. And on-site mobilizations is actually a sub-deliverable of site preparation. So I'm going to indent that under site preparations. And all those activities here, all those activities will be under on-site mobilization. So I have to do it until I indent underneath here. So that's practically what I did. Now, we have to make sure that these items are actually under constructions. So commissioning is actually not, I have to make sure that I remove this from underneath. You can actually easily get confused with this. So this right now are under constructions. So you just need to make sure your hierarchy is, and if it is wrong, you're actually going to know. Once you enter durations, you take a look at your project to see what is it. So all of these things here, all of these items are under constructions, but I created a hierarchy with a phase, a deliverable, a sub-deliverable, and activities. So that's what you have here. So this is what you have. Now we have to make sure that these are under constructions. They are under constructions and not under. So if they're not, if there is any issue with them, you can always go and outdent and indent. You know, if there is anything wrong as you start working with the software or with any project management software applications, by the way, you're going to, it's going to come natural to you to understand how to build your schedule. And particularly when you understand the scope of the project, that's going to be very easy. Now, before we move forward, what I'd like you to notice is that some activities here, the task mode, the pins here for some activities, the pin with the question mark, it is an indication that these activities or items, because they're not all activities, are manually scheduled. Manual schedule is actually not a good idea if you want to take full advantage of the software, because when you have tasks that are manually scheduled, if you perform a scenario analysis, the software will not take them into consideration because you want to leave them out. That's the assumptions when you manually schedule things. But if you want the software to consider an item in a scenario analysis, you have to include it. You have to switch it to auto schedule. So to do that, you can click on task mode, right? And column, you can click on that. And in the task tab, in the task group, click on auto schedule. The auto schedule is the gun bar with the arrow pointing to the right, this one. And everything now is in auto schedule. You can always check your software, your file, make sure that you are always in auto schedule. Now, there is actually a way to do that. If you can go in right now, when you enter a new task or a new item into the software, by default, it is manually scheduled, but you can change that. You can go to File, Options, and change that options in schedule. So right now, as you can see, by default, everything is 1 day. But what I'd like you to remember is that milestone should be 0 days, right? Charter created, that's not a real project activity. Milestones have 0 durations, and they do not have resource assignment. That's one thing to remember, right? So wherever you have a milestone, find they structured with a verb in the past tense, like charter created, you can spot them very easily. So when you are adding milestone to your project, the nomenclature is very important, because people who speak project management will quickly understand, well, this is a milestone, because the way it's structured, the nomenclature tell me that this is a project milestone, right? Here, customer final acceptance secured. I know this is a milestone, right? Very easy to spot, right? So what I'm going to do now next, as you can see, I just enter task, creating a hierarchy. You never have to enter start date and finish date. The software will give you an estimate of start and finish date for your project activities based on duration and relationships between those activities and WBS items. Relationship, we're going to talk about that in a minute. So the next step right now is to enter project duration. So we're going to go back to the spreadsheet, right? And we're going to take the durations from create project charter. We're going to copy this information all the way down. All right, we're going to copy it. And then we're going to go back to project, right? And in the duration column here, we're going to place our cursor. If you place it anywhere else, your durations estimates will not be accurate. So you have to do that, or we will have different information. So place it here and paste this information. All right. You see? Now, the key difference here, you have all your gun bars and project durations. As you can see, the software now is telling me that my project duration is 690 days. Now, this is not the real durations of my project. Now, what the software does, it takes the durations of the longest task in the project, trying to figure out when your project will end. So the software will not know until I enter task relationship. In other words, I have to tell the software where I'm going to do things in sequence and when I'm going to do things in parallel. So the art of scheduling is completing as many activities or items as possible in parallel. Because when you're doing things in sequence, you're fast tracking. You can expedite the durations of the project. This is when you develop an effective project schedule. So what I'm going to do again, I'm going to make sure that I remain in auto schedule for my activities, just click on it again and click on the auto schedule button here, right? So waiting for everyone to be done with this, and let me know when you're ready to move to the next task, right? Okay, so let's see, what do we have? Okay, ready? Start with line 3. I started from create project charter. Is that line 3? Yes, that is correct. Yeah, create project charter. And when you go into project, is to make sure that you place your cursor right in front of create project charter. So you copy the right information. Okay. Do you have questions here?
Yes, Professor. Unable to add that time.
The time?
The days. Yeah, the days. Yes, duration.
Unable?
Yes, yes, Professor.
Okay, so the way I did it, I copied from here, right? Create project charter, I start here and copy all the way down, right? Copied the informations and I went back, right? And I placed my cursor here, right in front of ID 3, right? And then I paste it, right? It should work. You want to try it? Did it work? No? Go
Yes,
ahead.
Professor, it's working, yes.
Okay, perfect. I have 2 other hands raised. Anyone else? Yes. Yes.
I just noticed that there are different durations, I mean days and weeks. So
Okay.
means that the software will adjust it automatically, will understand it.
Yes. I do have days and weeks for demonstration purposes, right? And I was going to talk about that. So you actually asked very good questions. The best practice in project scheduling is to use one unit of measure, one metric. And the recommended metric is day, right? Everything should be in days. Now, when I enter informations in weeks, what project does, it converts everything into days. And if I take this information, for example, and import it into any other software, the software most likely will do the same thing. Convert everything into one unit of measure. So even if I enter weeks here, the software will convert everything into days, right? So when you're working, my advice is that you convert everything into weeks. Now, there is another thing you should, I mean, students usually ask. There is the idea of the 880 rule. The 880 rule states that a project work package should be no shorter than 8 hours and no longer than 80 hours. That's the 880 rule. As you can see here, we have violations of this rule because I do have some of my work packages that's going to be longer than 2 weeks, 80 hours. So as you develop this project, remember this is a very large project. This is a power plant project, and I would break those things down into even smaller more manageable deliverables if necessary. So that's what the advice is, the best practice. But yes, you notice it. That's great. We're using days and weeks, but the software converts everything into days. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Do you have another hand raised? Who else wanted to speak? No one else? Someone?
Professor, I have a doubt. The 690 days and the ones at the sum, right? I'm not getting it on my system. It's not summing up automatically.
If it isn't summing up, it means you didn't create your hierarchy properly. So
Okay, yes.
review your hierarchy. That's what allows the software to sum up sub-items to the summary item.
Okay, Professor.
Yes. Do we have other hands? Go ahead if you're ready. Yes.
So in looking at the feasibility study section, it's showing 40 days to do the feasibility study. It looks like it's taking the longest item in that section. So 8 weeks, assuming 5 days a week, that's 40 days. So it looks like it doesn't total all of them. It just finds the longest.
Yes.
The task with the longest duration and says that's the longest time it needs. So that's, since we haven't put in precedence yet, that's why it's doing that.
That is correct. And the same is also true for the project itself, for the entire project, concentrated solar power plant. It takes the longest durations, not knowing the relationship between the items yet. But once we enter this information, you're going to see how these durations, the feasibility study durations will change, the entire project durations will change. That's a great observation.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything in chat for me to answer? So would it matter for project? We spell it out weeks. Well, the software actually recognizes the WKS. If you enter it, like if you enter weeks, it will actually notice it, but that's how it is in the software. 4 days, it's days, and weeks, if you say WKS, it will recognize it. So that's another good question. Okay, so should we talk about how we link things, right? How we link project items, and this is what I didn't capture the name of the person who spoke earlier, but they talk about precedents and relationships, right? So that's what we're going to talk about here. Now, we need to decide what is the relationship between those activities on the project initiation, for example. Now, if you select them like that, all of them together, right? And you click on the task tab and you link them. By default, they're going to be linked in a finish to start relationship. That's the default link. Now, let me show you something. Durations of project initiations right now is 10 days. That's the durations of the longest activity, create project charter. But if you link them in a finish to start relationship, what happened, the summary task will take, it's going to be the sum of the activities. 10 plus 5 plus 1, that's 16 days. Now, as you can imagine, if I do everything in a finish to start relationship, this project will last forever. Now, what I need to figure out is what are the items or project activities and deliverables that I can actually carry out at the same time. Why wouldn't you carry out project activities in parallel at the same time? There are two reasons for it. First reason is because the nature of the work wouldn't allow you. For example, you can't test an equipment until you've built it. you'd have to build a prototype first, at least, and then test the prototype, right? So the nature of the work doesn't allow you to do those two things at the same time. So you have to do one first and then the second. The second reason is because you don't have enough resources. Because to work on two things at the same time, because people can't really multitask, you'd need someone else to work on the other tasks, right? So if you didn't have resources, but if you have Peter and Daisy working for you in this project, you can say, Peter, you work on this, and Daisy, you work on that. And based on the availability, how many hours the task will require in any given day, then they can put, their hours and effort on those tasks, and you can go faster. But if you don't have enough resources and the nature of the work does not allow it, then you're gonna have to do everything finish to start. For example, can you create a project charter and prepare stakeholder analysis at the same time? If there are anything you could do and you have the resources, why don't you ask people to do it? In terms of project management, people say, well, you should have a project charter first and then probably conduct or prepare a stakeholder analysis. You should probably do that. Now, right now, I show you how to link things, but also you can go on, if I click on prepare stakeholder analysis, for example, and I click on the information comment here, right, button, it gives me informations about this task. It tells me the start date, which is coincidentally the same date of the project, because I didn't enter task relationship yet, and percent complete, 0% so far, because I didn't even start working on it. As you can see, it tells me it is auto schedule. But if I go to the predecessor tab, I can see it is in a finish to start relationship with create project charter, and I can change that if I want. I can change it from start to start or finish to finish if I wanted to, which would make sense. And as you can see here, if there is a lead or lag time, this is where you would enter information like that. What else you find in task informations? You have resources. If there is a resource assignment, this is where you'd see it. Now, right now, I don't have any resource assignment on this yet. And you can go to advanced, take a look at constraint, deadline. If there is any deadline, the task type, because tasks in the software can be fixed units. In other words, the number of people working on it will be fixed, or is it fixed durations or fixed work, right? And is it effort driven? You can say that. Effort driven is the idea that if you add more people to a task, you will be able to complete it faster. For example, if one person working full-time can do it in 5 days, 2 people working full-time should be able to do it in 2.5 days. Now, this is not always true, effort-driven, because some tasks are fixed duration, as you can see. Even if you add more people to them, nothing gonna happen because it's just what the duration is. And a good example is when you're waiting for a permit from the government, for example. Even if you add more people to it, nothing gonna happen. The government asks you for 5 days, and they will take 5 days before they can give you whatever you're looking for. So you can enter a note for project activities. You can enter a note for resources. You can do a lot of things here, as you can see. You can even create custom field if you wanted to. So now what we're going to do, since we know how to look at relationship, finish to start is the default relationship. You can link things just like I did right here, and you can unlink them too by using this broken link feature here to unlink tasks, right? If you click unlinked, you unlinked it. If you click link, and you can change the nature of the relationship from finish to start, to start to start, or finish to finish, whatever the case might be. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the spreadsheet, right? I already have those relationship expressed here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this information and paste it into Microsoft Project. So make sure you copy Form 4, right? Make sure you copy Form 4, prepare stakeholder analysis. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute. So I'm going to copy Form 4, prepare stakeholder analysis, all the way down to here, project to 60. And I'm going to take this information and I go to the predecessor column here. I can actually unlink this if I want to, and I go right here in 4. Now, you have to make sure you do it if you want us to have the same result. And I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste the information in, right? As you can see, I was able to do it. So, and then I'm going to check to make sure that this is correct, right? Let me know when you're ready, because as you can see here, the project duration changed from 690 days to 736 days. Now, there are dependencies or task relationships between my project activities and deliverables. That's what have caused that. Now, I'm waiting for everyone to see how, whether you all found 736 days. If you have a different result, is because of some differences in the task hierarchy. So we're going to talk about this relationship in a minute, because I know this is important. Okay, so what do we have in the chat? Okay, ready. We have many people ready. When we do a project due in March, we do have a first bill. No, yeah, you don't have to start working in Excel. I am working from Excel to project is just because I didn't want to give you the information in project because I would have already done it. So, but when you're creating a plan from scratch, you can start from another project file. You could start from a Word document. You can start typing directly into your project file. So you don't have to start from anywhere else. Okay. Okay. So let's so let me know when you're ready. Type ready when you're ready. Now, and if you found 736 days, please type in the chat 736. And if you found something else, just type what you found. Okay, so okay, 736, 734. Okay, keep typing. All right, that's fun. Now, perfect. Okay, now if you didn't find 736, now take a look at your task relationship. Take a look at your indentation, or take a look whether you left anything out in this in the relationship. Probably if you copied and pasted, it should be all right. Now, what you need to do is to make sure that your milestones have 0 duration, and also whether the your hierarchy is correct, right? We have some milestones here with 0 duration. If you didn't change the durations to 0, or if you didn't copy and paste it correctly, then you're going to have 2 additional or 3 additional rays. But for the most part, we do have differences because of the hierarchy. Now click on View, right? Click on View and click on Zoom. So zoom the entire project like this. So you can see some of the gun bars here in your project, right? So that's what this project looks like. What is the thing I'd like you to note here is that when I'm using the software, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to determine the flow of work in my project, from project initiations to project completions. How will my project unfold over time? So the flow of work, I'm trying to figure that out. Second, I'm trying to find the critical path of the project. So the critical path is the longest path in time of the project, and that's going to be the time it's going to take me to complete this project, unless I find a way to reduce some of the project durations, activity durations, or the, work package durations. So there are many ways to do that. Remember, is assign more resources, the idea of effort driven. If I assign more resources to a project activity after an initial resource assignment, then the project will, the software will assume that I'm trying to reduce the duration of the project deliverable or the project activities. And this is the reasons that I'm assigning more resources to it. So the software is going to ask you, is that what you want to do? If it is yes, then you're going to say yes, right? There is a smart tag questions that's going to pop up when you do that. I'm going to give you the examples when we talk about resource management in the software. So as you can see here, in order for the network diagram to be a good network diagram, all items must be linked. If you have items that are not linked, that are not part of the network, they are called open-ended items. And the validity of a schedule depends entirely on its logic. Now, if there are activities that require resources, that do not have resources, they will not be performed. If there are activities then that are not part of the network, then the software will not take them into considerations when it's look at the possible durations of your project. Now, it is easy to look here from the Gantt chart view to see whether I have open-ended items, look like everything is linked, but I can also take a look at the predecessor column to see whether I have anything that doesn't have a predecessor. Now, here's the way to check. Every item in the software should have a predecessor, except the first one. As you can see here, the first activity doesn't have a predecessor. Now, because it is a sub of project initiations, you don't have to worry about project initiations. The first activity here is create project charter. It doesn't have a predecessor because the first activity doesn't have a predecessor. There's nothing that comes before it. Now, every activity should also have a successor. The way to do that, you could enter the successor column. Now, I'm going to show you slowly how to do that, is to just, you can click on any tab here, like this, and type any predefined column that's already there. So there are many predefined columns. If you right click on it and if you say insert a column, then you're going to insert. That's what I did here. If I want, I can hide it. And if I want, I can insert it. Right? So that's what I did. Right? Insert. successor. So every activity in the software should have a predecessor, except the first one, and every activity should have a successor, except the last one. The last one will not have a successor. So that's how you know you have a complete, you have a closed network diagram. So that's what we've been doing, actually. We've been building a network diagram to manage the schedule of our project, and we're going to use it to manage resources as well. Now, the questions you may ask yourself, how about the summary item? The summary item here, site identifications, and I call it a summary item because it has sub-item, right? A high-level planning is not a summary item. It doesn't have any sub-items, right? So if you take a look at the predecessor column here, there's nothing in it. And the reason for that is because the summary item is linked by its sub-item. So if all the sub-items are linked and they are linked with other items, for example, activity 9, which is the first sub-item here, is linked with 7 in a finish to start relationship, and same here, like 13 and 11, right? If they link like that. So I don't have to pay attention to the summary. Remember, just like sub-items will sum up to tell you what is the durations or costs of a summary activity. You don't have to assign resources to summary activities. You just need, or summary items, you just need to assign resources and activity to the resources to the sub-items, not the summary item. So that's what I wanted to say. Okay, so that's what you're looking at here. Now, how about when you're doing it manually, you are not copying and pasting from a Word document? So remember, you can just select them and under the task tab, click link. And if you want to link 6 and 7 here, as you can see here, this is 7 and this is 6. If I want to link, I just select the 6 first and then the 7. That's how you create a finish to start. The way you select them is important to the software. I select the first one and then the second one, and I click on linked. If I select this first and then that one, the relationship will not be the same. It will be start to finish. This is not what I want. I want first, finish, and then start, right? So that's how to do it. Now, how do I link site identifications with pre-feasibility study? These are two summary items. I don't link them directly. The way I link them, I link the last item in site identifications to the first item using the control functions. I select the first one and I use the control function from my keyboard to select item 13. This is what I want here, right? I want 11 to be the predecessor to 13. So I select 11 and then I press on the control key and I select this one and I click on the link button, right? So that's how you do it. And if I want to link this and that, I do the same thing. I select the last one here and the first one there, and I click on linked, right? And if I want to change the relationship, I can just double click here and then go to the predecessor column and change it from anything else. Now, let me show you where I have different type of relationship, right? For example, here for equipment acquisition, this is ID 45. I have a finish to start relationship, no, a start to start relationship with 33. Now, where's 33? This is 33, right? Normally, that's 33. If you want, you can do it with 35 instead of 33, this relationship will work as well. But what I do here is that I type here and I type SS, so that should work, right? SS should work. So I want type the number. If you want it SS, you do. Or you can just click on it and click on the information tab and click on the predecessor column and then change the relationship. All right? So you can always do that. So many ways, there are many ways to achieve the same thing in the software. Now I'm going to stop a minute to answer questions. Yes, well, in project, you can cross-reference by looking at the predecessor column to see if you see anything that doesn't have a predecessor, because remember, every item should have a predecessor. If it is a summary task, it's fine. But if you see anything that doesn't have a predecessor and that is not a summary task, then you know you have a problem, right? Now, another way to check is to import your data into a software called Primavera Risk Analysis, and you perform a schedule check. The schedule check will tell you you have these issues with your schedule, and you should check, your linking or task relationships, because it appears that those items should have predecessors, successor, but they do not. And unless it is a summary task like that, that is linked by subtask, you should take care of it. So 2 ways to do that. It's quicker in Primavera Risk Analysis, but here you just look at your predecessor column and your successor column to see if you have anything missing here, right? So that's one of the ways to cross-check if you prefer. Okay. So what is a software called Schedule Checks? Well, what I said is that you could import your data into another scheduling software. It's actually risk management software they call Primavera Risk Analysis to perform a schedule check. But we're going to talk more about it in project risk management, right? In project risk management, this is the software we use to perform quantitative risk analysis, then we're going to do it. But for now, we just make sure that every activity has a predecessor except the first one, and that every activity has a successor except the last one. So that's how we're going to check. Okay, so what if we wanted to add lead and lag time? Sometime in schedule management, we may use lead time. A lead time is an accelerations between 2 project activities that have a task relationship. Now, let's take a look at item 25 and 26, for example. 25, this is 25, and this is 26. Now, let's say that permit application and contracting strategy development. So this one, I'm going to change that. So let's say that I can have a 2-day lead time between 25 and 26. A lead time, remember, there is a finish to start relationship here between 25 and 26. I know this because if I see it in the predecessor column, but I see it here too if I double click on the task. Double click, see it, double click, pop up the task information. and I look at predecessor, I see it's finished to start relationship. Now, what if I can apply for permit, and then 2 days after, I said, well, I wanted 2 days lead time between. After 2 days, I'm going to start working on contracting strategy. So the way to do that is to add a lead time in the lag box here. A lead time is a negative lag. And the way to do that is to type the minus sign and then enter 2 days and then pick enter. Now, a lead time is a negative lag. So that's how you do it in the software. Now, I'm doing this between 25 and 26. If I click OK, now I would like you to see here what it looks like right now and what's going to look like after I do this. Now, I enter this information and I click OK. Now, as you can see here, there is a finish to start relationship between 25 and 26 with a 2 days lead time. That's what we're looking at here. Now I can enter lag time and lead time. A lag time is a waiting time. This is the opposite of a lead time. A lead time is an acceleration, right? So you can do that, and if you want to do it for practice purposes, we can do it between any 2 tasks that have a relationship. But the way to do it, if the nature of the work requires it, it has to be something useful that you're doing with the software. For example, 36 and 37, I can have a lag time here. Let's say I need a 5 days lag waiting time. So if I need a 5 days waiting time, I can just use this, or I can just type it. Now it's look like that. It's 36 and 35. 36 and 37, they have this relationship, but there is a lag time. In other words, when I complete 36, I'm going to have to wait 5 days before I set up the site office for this project. So I entered lag time, which is a waiting time, and I enter lead time, which is an accelerations, which allows me to go faster here in this case. So this is actually in step 2 things we were doing. So next we're going to actually work on our how do we call that? Resource management for a little bit, right? So we're going to do that. We're going to work on resources, and then before I do so, I'm right now moving to step 3, but before I do so, I want to make sure that I answer all your questions. Questions? Do I have something in the chat? Why do 44 and 42 don't have? 44 and 46. 44, where's 44? And 46. Okay, so 44 and 46, every single task here should have a predecessor and a successor, just like we said, except the first one. And the first one doesn't have a predecessor, and the last one doesn't have a successor. Now, if 44 doesn't have a successor, you can add the successor, right? So here you have 43 as the, so is there, this is 44, is there any other task that is linked to office space? Equipment acquisitions, you can check here to see what's come after. Take a look at the nature of your work and say, well, after I got my office space, what's going to come after it, right? So, and then you enter 46, same thing, right? You have to tell yourself what comes after electrical work, right? Is that, for example, do I need to, after electrical work, if electrical work and mechanical work, can they be done at the same time? So what is the relationship between 46 and 47 here? So 47 here, as you can see, predecessor is 45, right? And ask yourself, what could be the relationship between 48 and electrical work, that is 46. Now say, well, actually, after electrical work, I can do the commissioning. So that's what you could have 48 here as a successor. You can always take a look at the nature of the work based on what I understand. Constructions of power plant, that's very easy for me to see if there is any problem in my any open-ended item in my schedule, I fix it. Same thing when you work on your project, make sure you understand the nature of your work and then tell yourself, you know, what's come after, what's come first. But that was a very good question. And that's part of developing a schedule, actually. I believe we have another hand raised here. That Martina? Go ahead.
Hi, I was just wondering, so since electrical works and mechanical works are being done at the same time, do we need to clarify the relationship that they have?
Well, whatever relationship they have, you can take a look here. Some tasks, remember, are independent because they may not have relationship between the two. And this is when you can do them at the same time. Anything that doesn't have a finish to start relationship are things you can do at the same time. So not all tasks in a network will be linked. In other words, some tasks are going to be independent from other tasks. They are all part of the networks, but they may not have a finish to start relationship. And in a video I created, it's called using burst and merge activities to develop effective schedule. You will see, you know, some activities, just like in this case, there are activities that are independent in the network, right? So that's why you're looking up here. You were saying again something?
Yes, so I was just wondering. So, I mean, do we like would it be okay if, like, doing this, we would just like link them together and like state the relationship and say that in order like that one is deemed completed if the other one is also completed?
You could, if this is true, yes. But in this case, as you can see, there is no relationship between, if you take a look at 46 and 47, if you take a look at the predecessor, they all depends on equipment acquisition, right? And there is no relationship here between the two. There's two, mechanical and electrical work. So in other words, you could work on them at the same time if you had the resources, if you could.
But like hypothetically speaking, would it be okay if I just said like they have a start, finish to finish relationship, kind of? If I did it, would it be okay?
Well, that would be okay. In reality, in practice, in a real project, there will be, you know, someone taking a look at if I look at your resources, I look at your schedule and I say there is a finish to start relationship or finish to finish relationship between those two activities. And if they're not related, I would ask you why you have this relationship, then you'd have a reason for it, right? Now, remember, the way you link things in a schedule depends on the nature of the work and your resource availability. You must have a reason to do it. There is a reason for everything you do. You just don't randomly do things in your schedule. So it depends on the nature of the work, your understanding of it, obviously. That would be the reason to do it. But if you say finish to finish, it's entirely up to you. But is it true that you have to finish the first one to finish the second one? Maybe not, right? If electrical and mechanical works, they may not be related, but if you need electricity to complete some of the mechanical work, that is true, then that would be something you do, and that would make sense, right? It has to make sense, whatever you do. Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other hands here? Okay. So,
yes, Professor. Another one was me.
Yeah.
Could you please explain again how to put relationship to summary items, like monitoring, closing, summary?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
When you're linking summary items, you don't link them directly because this may create some sort of double counting in terms of adding things together. So what you do, you link the last sub item of the first summary item. Like if I want to link site identifications and pre-feasibility study, I link the last item in site identifications to the first item of feasibility study using the control function. So I select this first and I press the control button, and then I select the other one and I link them in a finish to start relationship, if this is the relationship you want between the two. After you link them, you can always change this relationship if you want to, from finish to start to any type of relationship you want. Start to start, finish to finish, if this is the case for your project. All right, so that's how you do it. Now, we started, we want to make sure we cover everything that is important for us. So we're going to quickly finish with resource assignment. Then we're going to talk about fine-tuning our schedule, and I'm going to take all the questions you have before we end. So working with resources, the first thing to do is to create a resource pool. And a resource pool is practically a list of resources you have available for your project, and then you can actually assign resources from the pool to your project activities and project deliverable. So to do this, we're going to click on View. Remember, Microsoft Project is made on a series of views that we call workspaces. From View, as you can see, I can click on the network diagram view. I can click on a resource usage view that tells me, if you place your cursor on any of those comments, that they explain actually what they are. Which is actually a very neat feature here. Resource usage, it tells me view all the resources and the task assigned to them, right? And resource sheet, what does it do? Update details about resources. So what I need right now, I need a resource sheet, right? And I'm going to create very quickly a list of resources for my project. And in my case, in your case, you can type your resources here in the resource name very quickly. Type. I know you're very fast typers, and I'm not a very fast typer, so I'm going to copy and paste from Excel, right? So here I have a resource sheet here, right? And my resource, yeah, I have resource name, type, material label that tells me, you know, the unit of measure that I'm going to use. Max unit. In Microsoft Project, max unit represent resource availability. It tells me how many units that I have in a particular resource of the same scales. For example, at project administrators, 200% here, telling me I have 2 and working full time, right? And project manager, I have 1 project manager working full time on this project. And then standard rate, how much money I'm paying those people, and cost per use. If there's a cost per use, then I can use that, and how I'm going to assign resources. Is it going to be prorated throughout the life of the project, and the base calendar that I'm using? Is it my custom calendar or the standard calendar? So I'm going to start here by copy and paste this information from the project manager to all the way down. So copy this with me and then go back to here and then paste here. All right. In terms of type of resources, in Microsoft Project, you have 3 types of resources. 3 here, here, work, material, and cost. Now, the work type is used for people and equipment if you want to track the time for those resources. For example, if you want to track the amount of hours the project manager is working on project activities, you can make the project manager a work resource. Material is used to describe anything that is going to be destroyed or consumed during the process of creating the product of the project. Material for this construction project include, you know, the wires that we're going to, electrical wires we're going to use, anything that cabling, AC cabling, anything that's going to become part of the power plant project, we can use as material. The cost type is used to indicate anything that is an overhead in the project, things like insurance, travel, electricity. You can make sure these things are cost type in your project. They are going to be cost type, right? So we have work for labor and equipment. We have material for materials, things we consume during the project. We have costs for overhead, including salaries that we use in the project. If we don't want to track time for the people working on it. So these are the 3 types, right? So now if you take a look at my spreadsheet here, I have a bunch of work resources, but also I have material and cost. So I'm going to copy from materials from the control system here, and I'm going to project, and I'm going to control system. Where do I have control system? And I'm going to paste this here, right? That's what we have. As you can see, I have work, material, and I have costs for travel, IT support costs, for example. This is an overhead, and insurance. This is another overhead cost, right? So how about the max unit? The max unit, I'm going to copy here, copy from the project manager to here. I could do this another way, but I'm doing it right here to make sure that now I don't need the initials. I can actually hide that, right? How about the material label? Do I have any information for it here in my spreadsheet? The material label I have from control system. Here for information from control system. I'm going to go back to project. Where's project? Control system. And I'm copy and I'm pasting here. Material label. All right. So I'm almost done. What I need to enter my, I'm not going to use overtime here. In the US, the minimum time for overtime is time and a half, but I'm not going to use here. I'm going to hide it. So what I'm missing the standard rate here. I'm going to start with the project manager here. Project manager, standard rates, copy here and paste it, right? And what else do I need? That's it. So for the rest, there's nothing else, and everything is there by default, right? So this is my resource sheet. So once I have a resource sheet, I can assign resources to my project activities. Dorian asks, does cost overlap with work then? Are we talking in terms of material, in terms of resource type? If this is what you're asking, the answer is yes. For example, work, I use work to track resources, but when I pay people per hour, when they work on my project activities, they accumulate cost, right? So the only thing is that I don't classify this cost into overhead. It might be overhead because the project managers salary, the project administrators, the project coordinators, they all overhead costs, right? Because they're not direct project cost or product costs, so in this case. So yes, they're related. It is the way that I classify the resources for project management perspective here, or purposes. It's the classifications that is different, but they're related. So both work and cost type will give me the cost of the project. So that's what you need to know. The classifications is something completely different. Okay, so now that I have a resource pool, things that I can use. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's go back to the Gantt view. Now, from the view tab, you can go wherever you want, right? From the view tab, click on Gantt chart, right? And you go back to this view. Now, to assign resources, now if you think here, if you take a look here in the first spreadsheet, I have the project administrator, the project coordinator, and project manager assigned to create project charter. So what I'm going to show you here is how to do it when you're doing it from scratch. You can, I think it's important to do that. So the way to do it is to click on the task or activity, whatever the task might be, and then click on the resource tab, right? And from the resource tab, you click on assign resources, right? And you see this dialog box here. This is when I am going to assign resources. Now, something very important is going to happen here. I'm looking for the project coordinator, the project manager, and the project administrator. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all three at the same time and assign and click assign to create project charter, right? I select all of them, or every time I do that, I select all the resources, particularly if this is important, particularly if we're dealing with work resources. Effort-driven, for example, remember the idea of effort-driven is an important feature of the software, because this is how the software works with you to expedite your project and to manage resources and your time in the project. So I select them at the same time, and then I click assign. As you can see here, there is nothing in the resource name column.
Excuse me, Professor. I'm not sure how you got back to the main sheet out of the resource tab. I don't know how to close the resources tab.
Sure. Click on view. Click on view.
Yeah.
Right, and then click on Gantt chart. As you can see here, you have many options, but just click on Gantt chart.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So what I'd like you to know, if you want to switch from one view to another, for example, from this entry table to a different table, just click on view and then click on the table. As you can see, I have a bunch of tables here, including an entry table, a cost table, a schedule table, tracking table, variance table, a work table, a summary table, even a usage table. And you can click on more tables to see all the tables you have here, right? And you can switch from one to another from the view tab, okay? And to assign resources, what I did, I select the resource, the task, or the activity, whatever the task might be, and I click on resource tab, the resource tab, right? And I click on assign resources. And the assign resources dialog box pop up. I look for project administrators, project managers, project coordinators, and I select all three at the same time, right? And when I click assign, you will see they will pop up here, and they will also pop up on the Gantt view on the right side. So click assign. There you go. And I can close this to show you what happened here and here. So I could just copy and paste from my spreadsheet to here, but I didn't want to do it without showing you actually how to do it in your lab assignments or when you're working from scratch. Now, why is it important to select all your resources at the same time when you assign them to a project activity? If I assign if I first assign some resources, let's say I assign the project manager and the project administrators first, and then I add the project coordinator after, the software I wanted to say, will assume that I'm trying to reduce the durations of the task create project charter, because create project charter is effort driven. And you remember, you can always go to the task information, right? And click on advance here, and to see whether a task is effort driven, right? So if you check this box, it's mean the task is effort driven. It's mean when you assign more resources to it, the software will assume that you're trying to reduce the duration. That's what happens. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet, and I'm going to copy things from the prepare stakeholder analysis here. I'm going to copy all the resources. Now, what I want you to know, I don't want to assign resources to summary activities. I'm going to delete this. And that's part of me knowing that I don't need resources to summary activities. So I'm going to select this one and all the way down here to make sure that I capture everything. And I know that I'm going to start with prepare stakeholder analysis. As you can see, there is no resource assignment on charter created. You do not assign resources to milestones. They're not real activities, they're just schedule markers. So I'm going to go back to my software, project management software. I'm going to go here and I'm going to paste my resources. Here we go. And as you can see here, I have my resource assignment. But remember, I could just do it by just select resource, assign resources, and my resource sheet would pop up, or resource pool, and I would select resources from my resource pool and assign them to project activities. I'm showing you both ways to do it. If you had a spreadsheet, that would be okay, but you don't need a spreadsheet to do it. So that's how you do it. Now I'm waiting for everyone to make sure that here we have everything enter so far in the computer with and we're going to go back to the so let me know when you're ready. When you have this done, let me know if you're okay. Alexandra was ready. Okay, ready. Perfect. We have a lot of folks ready. Great. Okay, so that's great. So let's go back to the resource sheet, our resource pool. Let's go back to it. Now click on View and click on Resource Sheet. Now, as you can see here, I have one other allocation. So when you go to your resource sheet and you see one person highlighted in red, project is telling you somewhere in your project schedule, you assign this person to work more hours than they have in any part. It should be in any particular day. And the reasons that's only valid for work resources. That it's not valid for materials, not valid for costs, only for work resources where you're tracking time. So how do I figure out where that is? I can, from the View tab, if you take a look at resource usage, remember what resource usage does, you view all of the resources and the tasks assigned to them. So that's what you're going to see. Martina, go ahead, please.
I was just wondering, so for instance, in the consultants, it says 500%. Is it because it's 5 consultants?
Yes, it's because there are 5. However, it could be because there are 4 full-time and 2 half-time. So, because half-time is 50%. So when you have 2 people half-time, it will add up to 100%, right? If the assumptions is not 5 people or 5 consultants working full-time, you have to enter a resource note to explain that. Now, from the resource sheets here, right, you can select any resource and add a note, right? You can add notes here, and you can add resource note from here, right? This is the same thing. So you can add a note to explain what's going on with this, if it is, because when people, you have to provide, communications is extremely important. You're not always going to be there to answer people questions. When someone go to SharePoint, for example, wherever you keep your project files, in a portfolio, people will take a look at your file. They should be able to find informations there to answer any questions they might have, or you're going to receive a lot of emails. So the more information you provide, the less emails you're going to receive. So this is one of the reasons actually we record those videos to share, because if you already provide the information, so there would be less questions asked. And that's actually very good questions, Martin. What we were doing here, we were trying to figure out this overallocation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go click on view, right? And I'm going to click on resource usage, right? And here's the project manager. I do have some tasks that do not have resources. And I can tell you, I do this for learning purposes here. I'm going to highlight these milestones, right? These are milestones, and these are milestones. I know what they are. Now, the only items or project items you should see under unassigned, in other words, tasks with no resource assignment, should be the one highlighted in yellow, the milestones that do not require resources. Other than that, everything should have resource assignment, right? So right now, the monitoring and controlling tasks, I didn't assign resources to them yet, but I know who will be working on them. The project manager, the project administrator, and the project coordinators, they will take care of the monitoring and controlling activities. So what I want to do now, I want to understand where the project manager is overallocated, where I assign the project manager to work more hours than they have available. So as you can see here, if I take a look at my timeline here, I can see the time of the year and how many hours the project manager is working on any specific day, right? Here I'm looking at Tuesday. Now, if you take a look at this bar, it's a slider bar at the bottom, you can move from left to right to take a look at the project manager's work. Now you can move here. I'm going very fast, but as long as I'm going to the life of the project, I see here. For example, here, the project manager is assigned to work 16 hours during this Tuesday. And Thursday, this is Thursday. They're all T, but one is Thursday and this one is Friday. So, and the reason for that is because the project manager are going to work on the same day, right? On this day. Now, the thing is, you can say to yourself, well, the project manager doesn't actually need to work 8 hours on the permit applications, maybe 2 hours here to do it, and then 6 hours here on this, right? That's gives the 8 hours. And then the next day, the project manager actually doesn't need to work on permit applications at all. And that would serve my overallocation, right? And if you take a look at my project manager right now, and if you go back to the resource sheet view, there is no overallocation anymore. That's where the problem was. You can analyze overallocations in the resource usage view. You can fix them manually. Now, this is what you're looking at. This assignment work has been edited. That's what it's telling you, right? And if it is realistic, the way you do it here, there isn't any problem. But also, there is another way to solve overallocations, is to use the software help to do it. Now, if you click on resource, fixing people's work so they can have a level week of work or day of work, it's called resource leveling. So you can come here and select the resource and says level the resource, or you can level all your project for all resources at the same time. So it's entirely up to you whether you want to do it manually or automatically, but these are the two ways to do it. Now, after you have a project with resource and resource assignment, you can go back to your gun view and take a look at your project. If you, what I'm missing right now in terms of creating a baseline is the idea of contingency reserve, right? And I always say that a schedule or a performance baseline without contingency reserve is a bad performance baseline because things can go wrong, so you must add contingency to the plan. So I'm going to answer Pavana's questions, and then I'm going to show you how to add contingency reserve and set a baseline, because right now, if you click on the project tab and project information and click on project statistics, I do remember everything was 0, right? Now I have a project with money. I have a budget constraint, but I haven't used not even half of my money yet. So I'm still working on my plan. I didn't set a baseline yet. I didn't spend money yet on my project. At this point, I'm still in the planning phase, right? Duration, 0%, work complete here, 0%. So I'm all set. So Pavana, I'm going to answer your questions, and then we're going to move to talking about contingency reserve. Go ahead.
Professor, my question is a little bit vague. It's related to resource allocation.
Mm-hmm.
If we do resource allocation by the software, by the help of software to all resources, so is there any way for us to retrieve the reports that which resources were over allocated and now they are, I mean, in standard allocation? Some kind of report what we did, I mean, what software did. Just
well, what you
for reporting purposes, I mean.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, in addition to look in the resource usage here to see what the resource allocations here, you can create reports, right? So in terms of resource here, you can produce a report for overallocated resources, or you can create a this is called a resource overview. I've been speaking for almost 3 hours now. So, and if you click on more reports, you can see, more reports you can create here. But more importantly, create, those sort of 2 very nice reports you can create. If I select this one, and you can see I have a resource overview here with actual work, remaining work, and resources. And what they're going to do to the project, and you can see it in graph or table form. You can actually do a lot of things with this report actually. So they're very useful reports you can create.
Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. So let me go back to where I was. Let's go to the resource sheet, the resource pool. So what I don't have in my plan, I know that I solved the overallocation problem for the project manager, but I don't have contingency reserve yet. So what I'm going to do, I am going to take a look at the total cost of my project so far. Let's say that let's assume that I have all my resource allocations. I don't have any project activities without resource allocation, without resource assignment. Then I have a good plan. So far, the only missing thing is the contingency reserve. So we're going to enter this. Now let's take a look at the total cost of the project, right? Here. Let's enter the cost column. To do this, just click on this header and type cost, okay, and press enter. All right. This is the total cost of my project so far. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that 10% of that is going to be contingency reserve, right? Now, remember, it doesn't have to be 10%. It can be anything according to your organization's reserve policy. Some companies could, can tell you, well, it's 15%. We approve 15%. Others could tell you it's 5%. So for practice purposes here, we're going to take 10%. Now, 10% of the total cost is going to be $85,840. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my resource sheet, right? I'm going to create a resource here called Contingency Reserve. Contingency Reserve, right? So let's do that. Create a resource called Contingency Reserve and make it a cost type, okay? It's going to be a cost type. That's a cost type. Now, when you have cost type resources, you can't enter any information in the standard rate, obviously, because there is no standard rate for the cost type. If you enter a cost column here, just click on it and type cost, right? As you can see, there are a lot of resources that I didn't use yet. That's why they have no cost. And I didn't apply contingency reserve yet. That's why it has 0 cost. So these are the resources that I've used so far. I didn't use my control system, my resource material. I haven't used any of them yet. So for contingency reserve, you can decide, take a look at your project from the Gantt chart view, click on view and click on Gantt chart and decide where you're going to have reserve in your project, right? Now, based on your risk analysis in the project, you think you might need money in task 9, identifications of potential site. So you can add reserve to that. So to add reserve here, click on resource, assign resources, and look for your contingency reserve that you add, right? And then in the cost column, type 30 grand at $30,000, right? So it means that on identifications of potential site, I'm going to assign a reserve of 30,000. Doesn't mean that I know for certain that I'm going to need this money, but I'd like this reserve to be here. I could use it anywhere else based on my need, but I'm just going to enter it here. I type that money and I click assign, right? Now I have contingency reserve for $30,000. Don't close this yet, right? Look for feasibility study, technical and financial evaluations of preferred options, development of WOF technical concept. I might need reserve here. I'm going to add 20,000 here, 20 grand in here. So do this until you use up all your reserve, right? And then if you go back to the resource sheet, the resource pool, you'll see that you have $50,000 in your reserve so far. Now I have 85. I just showed you how to do it. I don't have to go and do for all $85,000. So that's how you build your contingency reserve, looking at your project. You could actually put it on just one item if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you, but a good practice is to take a look at your project, take a look at the riskiest part of the project, where you might need contingency reserve, and say to yourself, oh, that's where I'm going to probably use my reserve, probably. Remember, contingency reserve is for known unknown. In other words, risks you identify in your project. A risk is a future event with a measurable probability, something that may or may not occur. If you don't use the reserve, it becomes part of the project profit or whatever. So take a look at my chart. Let's take a look at the chart. Do we have questions here? I have to, okay, no problem. You are very much welcome. And remember, if you need this recording, it will be available. I'll send the link to everyone. Okay. So now let's go back to the gun view. This is how you deal with your reserve. And when you have reserve, you have a complete plan. What we're going to do, we're going to take a picture of it. This picture of the plan is called a baseline, and we're going to use it later to measure our performance. So to set a baseline, click on project, the project tab, right? And here we're going to click on set baseline, right? And we're going to set a baseline for the entire project. Now I'm waiting for you, the project tab, and I'm looking for baseline in the schedule group, right? The schedule group, that's this group here, and set baseline and make sure that the entire project is selected. And I do have a baseline. So let's take a look at project informations again and take a look at statistics. Now I do have a baseline. So I have a baseline start. Remember, that's the start date we entered at the start of the beginning of the workshop. And we have an estimated finish date, right? May 7, 2025 for this project. So now that you have a baseline, the project is underway. When you have a plan, you have to implement it. In other words, you have to execute it. So what are we going to do now? We're going to take a look at progress report. Now, progress reports is the idea that team members, as they work to complete project activities, they're going to come forward, they'll tell you where they are in the project. For example, here, since we have a date in the past, you can see we have things that are were supposed to be done in 2022, and some of them at the beginning of 2023, right? And you can go here and select those items, right? From create project charter all the way to, let's say, funding and of project development, right? And if you want, you can actually take this one too, item 11. So before I do that, I'd like you to take a look at the project statistic again, right? Project informations, project statistics. I don't have any actual tasks because I didn't spend any money yet. Because I didn't report progress. Even if I did spend money, I didn't report it to the software. So actual costs here, as you can see, is 0. All right. So what I'm going to do, I am going to select these project items, and I'm going to go to the task tab and tell the software in the schedule group that all those selected tasks are 100% complete. And if you click on it, there will be a check mark in the indicator column here to tell you that these tasks are actually 100% complete. Now, if you go back to the project statistic and project information, you will see that you have actual costs. Now, all those things you've done, you know, they cost this actual money. You see this? $240,000, 640, that doesn't have to be exact. So you spend money. So now when you complete, when you say things are 100% complete, not only you have to tell the software that, but you also need to tell the software how you completed them. Did you complete them on time or ahead or behind schedule? Did you actually spend more money? So that's the idea of variance analysis, right? So if you take a look here, in terms of variance, I don't have any variance, duration, start or finish variance. So the software, I didn't, until I tell the software that, I don't have anything. If you take a look at current and baseline, there is no difference between the two. Until you tell the software how did you complete those things, so there will be nothing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch to a variance table. Now this is called an entry table. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click view and I'm going to go to find a variance table, right? So the variance table show you start and finish, baseline, start, baseline, finish. Now those are things that you baseline in the computer. So they are the estimated that you completed here, that the estimates you entered in the software. What we're going to do, tell the software now, is if I enter, let's say I enter durations here, just click on it and type durations. And next to duration, click the header here and enter actual duration. So I have durations and I have actual durations. As you can see, duration is the baseline durations and actual durations is the actual time it took me to complete that. Now, if there is a variance or discrepancy, this is where you tell the software there is actually a difference between actual durations and the planned durations. This is planned duration. I plan to spend 10 days on this. Did I really spend 10 days on it? Well, actually, it actually took me 15 days. If you want, you can say it took you 5 days if you want to. How about prepare? You can fix this if you want. Prepare stakeholder analysis here, right? I have duration and actual duration. Prepare stakeholder analysis. This was supposed to take me 5 days. It took me 10 days. I changed the actual, not the baseline, right? So that's what I'm doing here. And same thing for planning. It was supposed to take me 15 days. It actually took me 25 days, right? So if you do that, but it's going to be valid only for things you completed, right? So this one, for example, was supposed to take me 12 weeks. If you tell the software it took me 20 weeks, then that's, so here I'm working, telling the software that I was late on something, on some of the activities that I completed, but you can tell the software something different. There is no, it's whatever your situation is. Now, if I go back to the project and project information here, you may see a variance, particularly in money. So if you take a look at the baseline cost that I have and the current cost I have, they're different. You see that? And I do have actual costs that was 240, now 314. And the reasons for that is because I spent more money than planned, right? So that's what you're looking at here. Now you can take a look at the same informations in a different table. We can click on view and click on table, click on more tables, and look for earn value table. Earn value, and click apply. So if you take a look here, here we go. I do have very important information here. I do have a cost variance now in my entire project. And the cost variance for the entire project is the sum of the variances for the activities where I reported variances of $43,600. Right now, the cost variance is telling me that my project is $43,600 over budget. A negative cost variance is going to be in bracket, and negative cost variance is telling you your project is over budget for the amount of money of the variance. Now, a cost variance doesn't tell you about the future of the project. It's it is an efficiency indicator of your project team so far, right? It tells your stakeholders or the project team how efficient you've been in spending money, right? And using time, cost variance. If you want to take a look at the future of your project, these are the three indicators that I'm going to tell you. The EAC, that's called estimate at completions. That's an estimate of how much your project will cost at the end of the project if you continue working with the same level of productivity or the same efficiency level. So the budget at completions is your baseline, what we baseline. And the estimate at completions is an estimate based on your progress, based on your efficiency so far, your productivity. If your productivity remains the same, you will have a budget deficit of $174,500. Now, remember, this project is actually the project has just begun. You have time to pull your project back on track. So a project manager would know what the situation is. Should I be concerned here, or should I do something about it? Should I report this to my project stakeholders to make sure they have I used up all my contingency reserve here? So these are the questions you have to ask yourself, and only the project manager and the project team will understand whether this is something that is of concern. So if you're asking yourself, what is the project manager's doing? Your project manager is monitoring how you executing the plan, the project plan. The project manager is checking the deliverables as well to check quality, whether you're following standards. These are the things the project manager is actually doing during project execution. So I take a look at the future of my project. These are forecast indicators. I see a project deficit, a budget deficit here in my project. And this is expressed in the variance at completions. VAC is variance at completions. This is my baseline. In the earned value table, it's a budget at completions. That's the budget that I baseline when I completed the planning phase of my project. So now I'm going to stop here and give you the opportunity to ask questions. I know our time is almost up, but I'd like you to know, if you want to reach out to me and ask questions, I'm always going to be available to answer your questions wherever you are, whether you are in Toronto, London, or main web this morning. If you want to reach out about this workshop and talk about anything else, you're certainly free to do so. Do you have any questions so far? I'm going to stop here to take your questions. View, and I'm going back to my entry table. That's how you do that, from view, table, and entry table. So that's my entry table. So remember, project is divided into views that we call workspaces, but view in the software, and all those views, different tables, different views are under the view tab here. Okay. Questions, boys? No questions? Do I have questions in the chat? No. No questions. Okay, so I think we actually covered everything here. We actually covered everything. If there was anything missing here we didn't cover, we were supposed to cover, we didn't. Definitely, please feel free to reach out. Thank you for attending this workshop, and I'm going to send information out with the link for those who want to rewatch this in the future. And I'd like to say many thank yous to Professor Gohar, who is here with us today, and for helping with coordinations of people entering this, and thank you. I appreciate your help, Professor Gohar. Okay, that's going to be all. And enjoy the rest of your day.